Hi guys, it's me again. I'm not really in a position to give people life advice, but if there's any young people watching, I implore you, do not get emotionally invested in fighters' careers. It's just not a good idea. Sure, your city's sports team may lose and disappoint you, but with team sports, your loyalty isn't to a person, it's to the color of their laundry. Who cares? A fighter is a person, his career is finite, and almost always ends after a series of disappointments and heartbreaks. That's just how it is. Imagine all the people across the world who loved Muhammad Ali watching him get dismantled by Larry Holmes. How could that have felt? Certainly not good. I got a bit distracted by Khabib retiring, so this video is a bit late and I apologize for that. Nonetheless, I wanted to talk about Lomachenko versus Lopez. A week before UFC 254 and Khabib retiring after beating Justin Gaethje, Teofimo Lopez unified the WBO, IBF, and WBA lightweight belts after beating Vasily Lomachenko by unanimous decision. Everyone's moved on from this fight, of course, but I really wanted to talk about it because it's a fairly significant upset, and on the losing end of this upset was my favorite active boxer. Yes, I'm a stupid person who gets emotionally invested in fighters' careers, and there are very few fighters whose careers I'm more invested in than Vasily's. If you think that makes my opinion too biased, then you can dismiss everything I'm about to say. And before you start slaughtering me in the comments, I just want to make it clear. I do not have a problem with the result of this fight. The result itself is not controversial. I don't think anyone can claim that. But Judge Judy Letterman scored the fight 119 to 109, which would indicate a bell-to-bell beatdown, which it most certainly was not. Why does it matter though? Why is it important? It's important because people, and even boxing fans, will refer to these scorecards. 20 years from now, if we're not all dead, someone will be looking up Lomachenko's resume in BoxRec and will reach the conclusion that Teofimo Lopez beat the brakes off of him because of this 119 to 109 scorecard. Even today, just go to any boxing forum and look at all the people talking about how dominant of a performance it was from Lopez. But then again, this was to be expected after a Lomachenko loss. Within the disturbed mind of a particular breed of combat sport fan, there's an impulse to hate a fighter who really never did anything to warrant hate. In the case of Lomachenko, we have a guy who is well-mannered, charismatic, supremely skilled and entertaining within the ring, and really has never had any issues outside the ring. So why hate on him? Really, the only explanation has to be some kind of twisted contrarianism. Because Jim Lampley or Joe Tessitore will go on and on about how great he is, that rubs people the wrong way, and so they hate on him as a reaction to this. Then we have the phenomenon of all these fans coming out of the woodwork to say that Lomachenko was just hype, was never actually good, and never actually beat anybody. This is the worst part about following combat sports. When a dominant fighter loses, suddenly he was always actually bad and has been exposed. This is irritating no matter who it happens to, but with Loma it hurt me more than it really should. That strand of absurd thinking aside, the more sensible view which has been floating around is that Lomachenko simply doesn't belong at lightweight. I can see the logic of this. Not everyone can be a Pacquiao. Loma is not particularly powerful at featherweight or super featherweight to begin with, and his power certainly isn't carrying over to lightweight. Moreover, he's not been as dominant at lightweight, as evidenced by the Lopez fight as well as by previous fights. He gets hit more at lightweight than at the lower weights. He was, of course, knocked down by Jorge Linares, the first and only time he got knocked down. But even when he coasted to victory like in his more recent performances, it wasn't quite the same as when he systematically deconstructed the likes of Walters or Rigondeaux. Although the Loma isn't the lightweight camp has a more sensitive view, I still think Loma is perfectly capable as a lightweight and capable of becoming the undisputed lightweight champ, in spite of having a significant size handicap and lacking the power to make up for it. And yes, in a rematch against Lopez, Lomachenko would still be favored, albeit not by as wide of a margin. So about this fight, I scored the fight 114-114. In fact, my scorecard was identical to Andre Ward's. But just like in any boxing match, there is a certain acceptable range of scores. In this case, there's really no path to saying Loma won this fight. However, anything from a draw to a 16-12 scorecard for Lopez is an acceptable scorecard in my view. And yet, all but one of the official scorecards was not within this range. So if we concede that rounds 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 12 are clear Lopez rounds, and that rounds 8, 9, 10, and 11 are clear Loma rounds, then that leaves 2 swing rounds, 2 and 7. So why did me and Andre Ward score round 2 for Lomachenko? Some people think this was a clear Lopez round, but Loma landed the best combination of the round and the best punch of the round by far, this left hand. Yes, Lopez was the more active fighter in this round, and well, Lopez was the more active fighter for the entire first half of the fight, but he didn't land many clean punches in this round, certainly not to the head. He did land a few good ones to the body, but he didn't do anything as significant as this. For rounds 1 through 6, Loma seemingly stayed in first gear. It was not until round 7 that you see a sense of urgency from him. He was far more aggressive and more physical as well, initiating the clinch on a number of occasions and sneaking in some shots while there. He was far more active in this round than in any previous round by far, and although Lopez still threw a lot more punches, Loma just seemed in control, and his defense was superb as well. And that brings us to my overall point. Lopez arguably won all of the first 6 rounds. Aside from that second round, the rounds he won were not close. Okay, but why weren't they close? And in answering this question, we have to be honest. Lopez won those rounds on activity. Loma is always low output in the early rounds, but in this fight he was abnormally low output. He threw 4 punches in the first round. That has to be a career low. Lopez was doing good work, especially with that fast, snappy jab, but let's be honest, he was the only one doing any work. And most of the punches he was landing was merely hitting the gloves and the forearms of Loma. Loma conceded a lot of those early rounds. I'm not sure what his strategy was, all I know is that it didn't work. Loma wasn't doing enough to really keep Teofimo honest, so for nearly the entire first half of the fight, Teofimo never had to leave his comfort zone. He filled up on easy points while Loma refused to throw punches. So let's not pretend that this was a bell-to-bell beatdown. And if you're one of those weirdos who think that Loma lost those aforementioned later rounds, please reevaluate your choices in life and go watch those rounds again. He was landing more punches and better punches than Lopez in those 4 rounds, and landed more clean shots in these rounds than Lopez did in the earlier rounds. So needless to say, I think Loma would take the rematch. I'm not sure he can finish Lopez, as he has trouble finishing lightweights in general, but I think he could put in another dominant all-around performance that we had come to expect from the Ukrainian through the years. I realize that this fight had a no rematch clause, but there are some ways around this which I don't fully understand, so I won't talk about it. I think it has something to do with beating Devin Haney first. Either way, it's a bad decision to care about this too much, so don't be like me.